The water rushed past the lakeside resort with unusual force that summer afternoon. But no one seemed concerned, no one except Finn Keller, who hadn't taken his eyes off his 6-year-old daughter playing near the shoreline. Something about the current made his skin prickle with unease, even from his position at the modest picnic table where they'd spread their simple lunch of peanut butter sandwiches and apple slices. "Emma. Stay where I can see you," he called, gathering their paper plates while keeping his daughter in his line of sight. "I'm just looking for pretty rocks, Daddy," Emma replied, her blonde pigtails bouncing as she crouched down at what Finn considered the boundary of safety. Nearby, the expansive lakefront property of the Silver Pines Resort buzzed with activity, families swimming in the roped-off area, couples lounging on plush deck chairs, staff in crisp uniforms serving drinks with paper umbrellas. It was a world away from Finn's reality as a single father working 2 jobs to make ends meet, but Emma had begged to see the fancy lake after they'd driven past it countless times. One day's splurge on the public access side of the resort wouldn't break them completely. He'd picked up extra shifts at the garage for weeks to make this day special for her. On the private deck of the resort's restaurant, Rebecca Lawson adjusted her sunglasses and sighed as her executive team continued their lunch meeting without seeming to notice her momentary distraction. As CEO of Lawson Enterprises, which had recently acquired the struggling Silver Pines Resort, she was supposed to be focusing on renovation plans and profit margins. Instead, she found herself watching a father and daughter on the public shoreline. There was something compelling about the man tall with broad shoulders, dressed in faded jeans and a simple gray t-shirt that had seen better days. He moved with a watchful grace, his attention never wavering from his daughter. "Rebecca, your thoughts on the lakefront expansion?" Her CFO prompted, drawing her attention back to the blueprints spread across the table. "I'm not convinced it's necessary," she replied, her business instincts resurfacing. "The natural beauty is our strongest asset. I'd rather focus on enhancing what's already here than a scream cut through the air, silencing the entire resort in an instant." Finn's head snapped up to see a child, not his Emma, but a boy maybe 8 years old flailing in the water beyond the safety ropes. The boy had apparently been on a small inflatable raft that now drifted empty, carried rapidly by the current. The child's panicked face disappeared beneath the surface, then reappeared, gasping and choking. "Someone help him," a woman screamed from the shore. The lifeguard stationed at the swimming area was already running, whistle blaring, but Finn could see the boy was being pulled farther out with each passing second. "Emma, stay right there, don't move," Finn shouted, already kicking off his worn sneakers. Without hesitation, he sprinted into the water, powerful strokes carrying him toward the drowning child. Rebecca stood frozen as she watched the scene unfold. The resort's lifeguard was running along the shore, trying to find a boat or anything to help. But the man she'd been watching moments earlier was already cutting through the water with powerful strokes. The boy disappeared beneath the surface again just as the father reached the area, and Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth in horror. The man dove under, seconds stretching painfully until both he and the boy surfaced. The child was panicking, flailing against his rescuer, and Rebecca could see the struggle as the man fought to keep them both afloat while calming the terrified boy. "It's okay, buddy. I've got you." "Stop fighting me," Finn's voice carried across the water as he managed to get an arm securely around the boy's chest, turning to swim back to shore against the current. By now, everyone at the resort was watching. Rebecca found herself moving down the deck steps and toward the shoreline, her expensive heels sinking into the sand as she joined the crowd gathering at the water's edge. The man's strength was failing. Rebecca could see it in the way his strokes became less coordinated, in how the current seemed to be pulling them sideways despite his efforts. The resort's lifeguard had finally launched a rescue boat, but it wouldn't reach them in time if they were swept further out. What happened next would forever be imprinted in Rebecca's memory. The man's daughter, still standing where he'd told her to stay, cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, "Daddy, remember what you always tell me, slow and steady." The man's head lifted at his daughter's voice. He adjusted his grip on the boy, changed his angle against the current, and began a more measured, powerful swimming pattern. Inch by hard-fought inch, he made progress toward the shore until finally his feet found purchase on the lake bottom. As he staggered the last few yards through waist-deep water, carrying the sobbing child, the crowd erupted in applause. The boy's mother rushed into the water, taking her son into her arms with incoherent thanks pouring from her lips. Finn simply nodded, too exhausted to speak, and made his way to where Emma waited, her eyes wide with worry and pride. "You did it, Daddy," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around his wet waist. "I told you I'm a super dad," he managed with a weary smile, his knees nearly buckling as the adrenaline began to fade. Rebecca found herself moving forward without conscious thought. "Sir, are you all right?" she asked, noting his pallor and the way he swayed slightly. Finn looked up, blinking water from his eyes, and found himself face to face with the most elegantly beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Chestnut hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, intelligent green eyes filled with concern, and a summer dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "I'm fine," he said automatically, though he felt anything but. His muscles screamed from the exertion and his lungs burned from swallowing lake water. "You don't look fine," Rebecca said firmly. "You need to sit down, medical staff." She called over her shoulder and immediately 2 resort employees hurried forward. "Really, I don't need," Finn started to protest, but a wave of dizziness swept over him and he found himself being guided to a nearby deck chair. "Daddy," Emma's voice trembled as she clutched his hand. "I'm okay, sunshine," he assured her, squeezing her fingers, "just tired from swimming." Rebecca knelt down, bringing herself to the little girl's eye level. "Your daddy is very brave," she said softly. "He just needs to rest for a minute. What's your name?" "Emma Keller." "I'm 6.5, the child replied, her worry giving way to the natural friendliness of childhood. "I'm Rebecca. It's nice to meet you, Emma." She smiled, then looked up at the man. "And you are?" "Finn Keller," he answered, trying to ignore how his heart rate, which had just begun to slow from the rescue, picked up again under her direct gaze. The resort doctor arrived, checking Finn's vitals and examining him for signs of secondary drowning. The boy's parents hovered nearby, the father now holding his son wrapped in a thick resort towel, the mother wiping tears from her face. "Mr. Keller," the father said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you. If you hadn't acted so quickly, my son." Finn shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same." "But they didn't," Rebecca said quietly. "You did." Something in her tone made Finn look at her more closely. There was admiration in her eyes, yes, but something else too, a kind of wonder, as though she were seeing something rare and precious. The next hour passed in a blur for Finn. The resort staff brought dry clothes for him, designer items from the gift shop that made him uncomfortable when he saw the labels. Emma was delighted by the attention, happily accepting a Silver Pines Resort t-shirt and showing it off proudly. The boy's parents, the Martineses, tried to press a reward on Finn, which he steadfastly refused. "Please, let us do something," Mrs. Martinez insisted. "You saved our Tyler's life." "Your thanks is enough," Finn said firmly. "I'm just glad I was there." Rebecca watched this exchange from a short distance, something shifting inside her as she observed Finn's quiet dignity. In her world of corporate takeovers and strategic power plays, genuine selflessness was a rare commodity. "Mr. Keller," she said, approaching once the doctor had cleared him and the Martineses had reluctantly accepted his refusal of a reward. "I'm Rebecca Lawson. I own this resort." Finn's eyebrows rose slightly. "Miss Lawson," he acknowledged with a nod. "I hope our using the public access beach hasn't caused any problems." "Quite the opposite," Rebecca replied. "You've reminded everyone here what truly matters." She hesitated, then continued, "I'd like to offer you and Emma dinner at our restaurant tonight, as my personal guests." Finn glanced down at Emma, who was practically vibrating with excitement at the prospect, then back at Rebecca. "That's very generous, but we should probably head home. It's been quite a day." "Please, Daddy," Emma pleaded, her blue eyes wide. "The restaurant has fairy lights. I saw them." Rebecca smiled at the little girl. The chef makes excellent macaroni and cheese too, she added, having correctly assessed Emma's likely food preferences. Finn hesitated, torn between practical concerns. They didn't belong in a place like this. He couldn't afford to tip appropriately, they'd have to drive back late, and the pure joy on his daughter's face. "All right," he conceded. "Thank you, Miss Lawson." "Rebecca, please," she corrected with a warm smile. "Dinner is at 7. In the meantime, please enjoy the resort facilities as my guests." As she walked away, Rebecca wondered what had possessed her to make such a personal invitation. In the 3 years since taking over as CEO of her family's company following her father's death, she'd built a reputation as brilliant but reserved. Professional publications called her the Ice Queen of Hospitality, a moniker that stung but wasn't entirely inaccurate. Something about Finn Keller's unflinching courage and the tenderness with which he treated his daughter had pierced through her carefully constructed defenses. For the first time in years, she was acting on impulse rather than calculation. Finn watched her go, mystified by the turn of events. "Well, Emma Bean," he said, looking down at his daughter, "looks like we're having a fancy dinner tonight." "Yes," Emma pumped her fist in the air. "Can I wear my special dress, please?" Finn laughed, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Your special dress is at home, sunshine." "Actually," a resort staff member interjected politely, "Miss Lawson has arranged for you to have a suite for the afternoon to rest and prepare for dinner. There's also a selection of clothing items being sent up, including some children's dresses." Finn blinked, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. "That's really not necessary. Miss Lawson was very clear about making you comfortable," the staff member insisted with a smile. "If you'll follow me," Emma tugged at his hand. "Come on, Daddy, we get to stay at the fancy hotel." Unable to resist his daughter's excitement, Finn allowed himself to be led toward the main building, wondering what exactly he'd gotten them into by accepting dinner with the beautiful, enigmatic owner of Silver Pines Resort. The suite they were shown to was larger than their entire apartment. Emma ran from room to room, exclaiming over the enormous bathtub, the plush beds, and the balcony overlooking the lake. Finn stood in the center of the living area, feeling profoundly out of place among the luxury furnishings. When a gentle knock announced the arrival of clothing options, Finn was stunned by the thoughtfulness of the selections. For Emma, there were 3 age-appropriate dresses in different styles, along with accessories. For him, casual but high-quality attire, nothing flashy or ostentatious, just well-made items in his size. How had they known? That wouldn't make him feel like he was wearing a costume. After they'd both showered and changed, Emma twirled in her chosen yellow sundress. "Daddy, do I look like a princess?" "Better than any princess," Finn assured her, kneeling to help adjust the ribbon in her hair. "You look like Emma Keller, and that's the best thing in the world to be." She beamed at him, then her expression turned serious. "Are you still scared from saving that boy?" Finn paused, considering his answer carefully. His daughter was remarkably perceptive. "I was scared when it was happening," he admitted. "But I'm okay now. How about you? Were you scared watching?" Emma nodded solemnly. "A little. But I knew you'd save him because you're the strongest daddy ever." "That's because I get my super strength from your hugs," Finn said, opening his arms. Emma launched herself into his embrace, and for a moment, everything was perfect in Finn Keller's world. At precisely 7 o'clock, they made their way to the restaurant. Rebecca was waiting for them, having changed into a simple but elegant blue dress. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and Finn was struck again by her natural beauty. "You look very pretty, miss." "Rebecca," Emma said with the directness of childhood. Rebecca smiled, genuinely touched. "Thank you, Emma. You look absolutely beautiful in that yellow dress. It matches your sunny personality." She led them to a table on the deck, positioned perfectly to catch the sunset over the lake. What followed was one of the most surprising evenings of Finn's life. He had expected awkwardness and condescension, but Rebecca was warm, engaging, and remarkably down-to-earth for someone who clearly commanded immense wealth and power. She drew Emma out, listening attentively to the little girl's stories about school and her best friend Zoe and the frog they'd rescued from the playground last week. She asked Finn about himself, and he found himself opening up about his work as a mechanic during the day and bartender 3 nights a week, about the struggle to balance his jobs with being present for Emma since his wife had left them 3 years ago. She decided parenthood wasn't for her, Finn explained simply, careful to keep his tone neutral for Emma's sake, though the abandonment still stung. She signed away her rights and moved to California. "I'm sorry," Rebecca said, and the genuine compassion in her eyes told him she understood the weight of what he wasn't saying, the betrayal. The nights of trying to explain to a 3-year-old why mommy wasn't coming home, the constant juggling act of solo parenting. "It's worked out for the best," Finn said, ruffling Emma's hair gently. "We've got a good system now, don't we, Emma Bean? Daddy makes the best blanket forts on movie nights," Emma informed Rebecca seriously. "And I help with the laundry because I'm a good folder." "That sounds like an excellent arrangement," Rebecca replied, equally serious. Then, to Finn's surprise, she shared stories from her own childhood, not the privileged upbringing he might have expected, but memories of a father who, despite his wealth, had taught her the value of hard work and compassion. "He started with nothing," she explained. "Built Lawson Enterprises from the ground up. He never let me forget that the true measure of success isn't what you have, but what you do with it." As the evening progressed, Finn found himself increasingly drawn to Rebecca. She was brilliant and ambitious, yes, but there was a vulnerability beneath her polished exterior, a loneliness he recognized because he carried a similar weight. For her part, Rebecca couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed a dinner companion so much. Finn was refreshingly genuine, with a quiet intelligence and dry humor that delighted her. And his relationship with Emma spoke volumes about his character, the patient way he helped her cut her food, how he listened when she spoke, the inside jokes they shared. As dessert arrived, a spectacular chocolate creation that made Emma's eyes widen in wonder, Rebecca realized she didn't want the evening to end. But Emma was beginning to fade, her excitement giving way to tiredness as she leaned against her father's arm. "I should get her home," Finn said softly, noticing his daughter's drooping eyelids. Rebecca nodded, feeling an unexpected pang of disappointment. "Of course. Thank you both for joining me. It's been the most enjoyable dinner I've had in a long time." "We should be thanking you," Finn replied. "This whole day has been unexpected in the best possible way." As they rose to leave, Rebecca made a decision. "Finn, I know this is forward of me, but I'd like to see you again. Both of you," she added, looking at Emma with a genuine smile. "Perhaps this weekend. There's a children's art festival in the botanical gardens that Emma might enjoy." Finn hesitated, aware of the vast differences in their circumstances. "Rebecca, please say yes, Daddy," Emma mumbled sleepily. "Miss Rebecca is nice. She doesn't talk to you like you're silly, like some grown-ups talk to kids." Rebecca laughed softly. "High praise indeed." Finn looked at Rebecca, really looked at her beyond the designer clothes and the CEO title to the woman who had knelt to speak to his daughter at eye level, who had listened to Emma's stories as though they were fascinating, who looked at him not with pity but with genuine interest and respect. "Yes," he said finally, "we'd like that." The following Saturday found them wandering through displays of children's artwork, Emma darting between exhibits with boundless enthusiasm while Finn and Rebecca followed at a more measured pace. Rebecca had dressed down for the occasion: jeans, a simple blouse and comfortable flats, but there was no disguising her natural elegance. "You didn't have to do that, you know," Finn said as they watched Emma participate in a finger-painting workshop. "Do what?" Rebecca asked, turning to look at him. "Dress differently, for us," he clarified. "I know this isn't your usual style." Rebecca's expression softened. "Actually, this is more me than the power suits and formal dresses. Those are armor for the corporate world. This," she gestured to her casual attire, "is what I'd wear if I didn't have to consider my image every time I step outside." "I like it," Finn said simply. "It suits you." Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, an acknowledgement of the growing connection neither had anticipated. That day marked the beginning of what Emma would later call the summer of fun adventures. Rebecca found herself clearing her schedule for weekend outings hiking trails that Finn knew from his childhood community festivals Emma wanted to attend, simple picnics in the park. She introduced them to the symphony, carefully choosing a family concert with music Emma would recognize from movies. For Finn, the developing relationship was both exhilarating and terrifying. Rebecca fit into their lives with surprising ease, never attempting to buy Emma's affection with expensive gifts, but instead offering her time and genuine interest. She respected his boundaries as a parent, always checking with him before suggesting activities, never undermining his authority with Emma. But the differences in their circumstances remained. Finn was acutely aware of the financial disparity, of the fact that Rebecca lived in a world where decisions weren't dictated by checking account balances and budgeting for school supplies. On a warm July evening, as they sat on the small balcony of Finn's apartment after Emma had gone to bed, the issue finally came to a head. "You're quiet tonight," Rebecca observed, sipping the modest wine Finn had splurged on for her visit. "Just thinking," Finn replied, watching the way the setting sun caught in her hair. "About," he hesitated, then decided on honesty. "About how this doesn't make sense, you and me." Rebecca set down her wine glass. "Why doesn't it make sense? Because you're—" He gestured vaguely. "You. CEO, brilliant businesswoman, could literally have anyone you wanted. And I'm a mechanic with grease perpetually under my fingernails, raising a 6-year-old on my own, working 2 jobs to afford a 2-bedroom apartment." "And," Rebecca prompted, her expression unreadable. "And eventually, the novelty will wear off. You'll remember that we come from different worlds, want different things." Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. "Is that what you think this is for me? A novelty?" "I think," Finn said carefully, "that you're genuinely kind and were moved by what happened that day at the lake. I think you enjoy spending time with Emma and maybe with me too, but I also think reality has a way of asserting itself." "You're right about one thing," Rebecca said, leaning forward. "I was moved by what I saw that day, but not just by your courage in saving that boy. I was moved by how you looked at your daughter, by the way you refused the reward, by your dignity and integrity. I've spent my adult life in boardrooms where people scheme and manipulate for advantage. Your authenticity was like finding water in the desert." She reached across and took his hand. "These past weeks haven't been about novelty, Finn. They've been about discovering what actually matters. You and Emma remind me of who I wanted to be before I got caught up in corporate politics and quarterly reports. I don't want to be your real-world experience before you go back to your real life," Finn admitted, voicing his deepest fear. "What if this is my real life?" Rebecca countered. "What if everything else has been the illusion?" Their first kiss happened then, on that modest balcony with mismatched furniture. It was tentative at first, then deepening with a recognition that both had been moving toward this moment since that day at the lake. The challenges didn't disappear with that kiss. Their relationship required constant navigation of different worlds and expectations. Rebecca's board members raised eyebrows at her choice of partner. Finn's friends warned him about getting his heart broken when reality set in. But they built their relationship deliberately, with honest conversations about everything from finances to parenting philosophies. Rebecca never tried to solve Finn's problems with her wealth, understanding that his pride and independence were integral to who he was. Instead, she found more subtle ways to support them, connecting him with a garage owner looking for a skilled manager, which meant better pay and more regular hours. Volunteering at Emma's school so she could spend time with the little girl without overstepping. Finn, for his part, gave Rebecca something she'd been missing since her father's death: someone who saw her, not her position or her fortune. He created space where she could simply be Rebecca, not CEO Lawson. He listened to her ideas about the resort, offering practical perspectives she wouldn't hear from her executive team. He made her laugh, challenged her when needed, and gradually helped her find balance between ambition and living a meaningful life. 3 months after they met, Rebecca arrived at Finn's apartment for their regular Friday night dinner to find Emma bouncing with excitement. "Daddy's making your favorite pasta," she announced, pulling Rebecca inside. and I made the table look fancy with napkins shaped like swans. Well, kind of like swans, maybe more like lumpy ducks. Rebecca laughed, following the little girl to the kitchen where Finn stood stirring sauce, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Everything okay?" Rebecca asked, kissing him lightly. "Perfect," he replied with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Dinner's almost ready." Throughout the meal, Emma chattered happily, but Finn remained distracted. Rebecca was beginning to worry when Emma suddenly announced, "Can I give Miss Rebecca her surprise now, Daddy?" Surprise. Rebecca echoed, looking between them. Finn took a deep breath. "Yes, Emma Bean, go get it." Emma raced to her bedroom, returning with a clumsily wrapped package that she presented to Rebecca with profound ceremony. "We made it together," she said proudly, "but it was Daddy's idea." Rebecca carefully unwrapped the gift to find a handmade photo album. The cover, decorated with Emma's artistic flair, read "Our Adventures." Inside were photographs from the past 3 months, their day at the botanical gardens, hiking expeditions, backyard barbecues, quiet evenings reading together on the couch. "Turn to the last page," Finn said softly. Rebecca did, finding not a photograph but a child's drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall one with wild curls labeled Miss Rebecca, a medium one with spiky hair labeled Daddy, and a small one with pigtails labeled Me. Above the drawing, in Finn's neat handwriting, were the words, "Will you be part of our family?" Rebecca looked up, her eyes filling with tears, to find Finn kneeling beside her chair, a simple but elegant ring in his hand. "I know it's fast," he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. "And I know there are a million reasons why this shouldn't work, but I love you, Rebecca. Emma loves you, and I hope you love us too." "I do," Rebecca whispered, her tears flowing freely now. "I love you both so much. So will you marry us?" Emma asked eagerly, bouncing on her toes. "Yes," Rebecca laughed through her tears. "Yes, I will absolutely marry you." As Finn slipped the ring onto her finger, a ring she later learned he had saved for months to purchase, refusing her family's offers of heirloom jewelry, because he wanted to give her something that was purely from him. Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that this was the right choice. Their wedding 6 months later was a blend of their worlds, held at Silver Pines Resort, but planned with thoughtful simplicity. Emma served as flower girl and best daughter, scattering petals down the aisle before taking her place proudly beside her father at the altar. During the ceremony, Finn and Rebecca exchanged traditional vows, but they had a special moment for Emma too. Rebecca knelt down to the little girl's level, presenting her with a delicate bracelet. "Emma, I'm not just marrying your dad today," she said, her voice carrying clearly to their gathered friends and family. "I'm promising to be part of your family forever. I will never try to replace your mother, but I will always be here for you, to listen, to help, to cheer you on, and to love you with my whole heart." Emma, dressed in a miniature version of Rebecca's simple gown, threw her arms around her new stepmother's neck. "I love you, Mom," she whispered the first time she had used the title, a choice Rebecca and Finn had left entirely up to her. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering as Finn joined their embrace, the 3 of them holding each other close, before completing the ceremony that would officially make them a family. 5 years later, Silver Pines Resort celebrated its most successful season, yet under the joint management of Rebecca and Finn Keller. The once struggling property had been transformed into a premier destination that maintained its natural beauty while offering accessible options for families of all income levels, a philosophy that reflected the blended perspectives of its leadership team. Rebecca had stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Lawson Enterprises' other holdings to focus on the resort and their expanded family, which now included 3-year-old twins James and Olivia. Finn had discovered an unexpected talent for hospitality management, combining his mechanical knowledge, practical problem-solving skills, and genuine warmth to oversee the resort's operations. On the anniversary of the day they met, the Keller family always had a private celebration at the lake. This particular evening, as the twins built elaborate sand castles under 11-year-old Emma's supervision, Finn and Rebecca stood at the shoreline, his arm wrapped around her waist. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been here that day? Finn asked, watching the sunset paint the water with gold and crimson. If Tyler hadn't fallen in or if someone else had reached him first, Rebecca turned in his arms, resting her hands against his chest. I believe we would have found each other anyway, she said with quiet certainty. Maybe not that day or in that way, but eventually. Some things are just meant to be. Finn smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You've gotten romantic in your old age, CEO Lawson. That's CEO Keller to you, she corrected with a laugh. And it's not romance, it's statistics. The probability of finding someone who fits you perfectly, who challenges you and supports you in exactly the right ways. She shook her head. The math says we're a miracle. Daddy, Mom, come see our castle before the twins destroy it, Emma called from further down the beach. Hand in hand, they walked toward their children, the family they had built together from unexpected beginnings, founded on courage and compassion, strengthened through the patient work of bridging different worlds, and sustained by a love that proved some differences don't matter at all when hearts recognize their match. As the sun set on the lake where their story began, Rebecca squeezed Finn's hand. "Thank you for saving that boy," she said softly. "Thank you for saving me," he replied, the simple truth of it reflected in his eyes. In the end, that was their story, not of a CEO and a mechanic, not of wealth and struggle, but of two people who saved each other in all the ways that truly mattered.